if bad luck comes your way, deal with it, get over it, and get on with it. Now, sometimes it's not even bad luck. Sometimes it's bad judgment. Sometimes you make mistakes, and things go wrong. And I think one has to accept that, number one, careers are never linear. Careers always have setbacks. I look back in my career and the number of times that I thought I should have been the one who got the promotion or the job, and I was overlooked, and the temptation to throw your toys or get into a sulk is quite high. Never slam a door behind you, by the way. I've learned from many experiences where if you feel that you've been harsh done by and you physically or literally slam the door behind you, it's always a dumb move, and you always regret it. So being prepared to have setbacks and failures is part of what I think you really need if you're going to succeed in life, because you will have them. And if you're never prepared, or if you can never contemplate failure, you're never going to take on the things if there's a risk of failure. And the fear of failure, I think, is one of the greatest inhibitors. So, back to the timing and the luck, way back in, and when I first moved, I left the Anglo-American Corporation after I'd been at Deloitte, and I went down to Cape Town in 1977 to an industrial group that was mainly in the building materials industry. And the building materials industry was going through a very bad time. 1977, economically for South Africa, was a disastrous time. We'd had 1976, we'd had Soweto. For the first time, the world and South Africa said, this apartheid thing, it's going to come to an end sometime, and the end's probably going to be ugly. And it shattered confidence, and people withdrew their funding from South Africa. And so the building industry was in the doldrums, and I went down to Cape Town as finance director. I knew I didn't want to be finance director for the rest of my life, and it was part of my problem at Anglo. I could see that Anglo was going to be a very, very long road to break out of the finance director role. So I went down to Cape Town and joined this company, and every month the figures got worse and worse and worse. And 10 months in, the chief executive was called up to Johannesburg and was fired, and I got a call to say, Tom, we're going to need to find a new managing director for the Sam Newman Group, but you've been there for 10 months, you're the finance director, you probably know a little bit more about the big picture. Hold the reins while we go to find somebody. Now, just at that time, the government of South Africa decided, if we're not going to have more 1976s, we better start changing some of the things we do. So they started a massive housing program, and they started in the Western Cape. Mitchell's Plain, Atlantis, enormous housing development. And up went turnover in the building industry. It was pure good fortune. It also happens, unlike this last weekend in Cape Town, which was very wet, that in the building industry, in the winter, your turnover goes down because people can't build a lot of the time. We had the driest winter for 40 years, the first 6 months I was there. So every month the figures went up, and after 6 months I got a call saying, Tom, we don't know how you're doing it or what you're doing, but you're it, you've got the job. So, there I was, 29, 7,500 people, diversified industrial company. I really didn't have the training to do this job, but the luck came my way, and, I kind of grabbed it. Things don't always work that way. In 1984, I by then left and started Boardman's, and I had my first 2 big stores. I'd launched them in Cape Town. I put my own name on it. I copied what IKEA was doing in Europe. Pick and Pay came and said to me, oh, we love your business, we love the concept, we want to buy in. So we had a long negotiation, and I sold them 50% of Boardman's, and we agreed that we would open 2 new stores a year for the next 3 years, 2 in 85, 2 in 86, and 2 in 87, and then after that we'd accelerate the expansion. I signed up for the 2 in 85, a big store in Tiger Valley, a new shopping center coming on, a massive big store in Stellenbosch. And it could be a long story, Carl, so I'll cut it short. A guy called Hugh Herman, who had been with Sonnenberg's and ended up as chairman of Investec. He was then chief executive of Pick and Pay. Phoned me one day and said, Tom, just pop in on the way to work. He said, by the way, we know we're only doing 2 stores in 85, but your old company, Anglo-American Properties, they're building a huge shopping mall up there in Midrand. And they want the first Boardman's in Gauteng. And they prepare to give you 6 months free rental and shop fitting allowances. And I said, Hugh, we're up to here with these 2 big new stores. He said, I thought you might say that. He said, look, but Raymond's Learjet's going up there this afternoon. We're going to go and have a look. Do you want to come with? I thought, I've never been on a Learjet before. This sounds quite good, You walk past all your friends standing in the queue at the airport, sink into the leather and off you go. Long and the short of it, on the way back, I'd already decided to sign a lease for a third huge store to open in 1985. I then made even a bigger mistake, because then Wolfie Sessman of Liberty Properties phoned them and said, "We incensed that the first Boardman is going to be in Midrand, and we want him to take over the John Laws department store in Eastgate, put a big Boardman's there, established centre." I did all the what-ifs, and we didn't have Excel. We had Lotus 1, 2, 3 in those days, and signed for another. Now I'm opening 4 massive stores. And on the 15th of August, 1985, a fellow called the Groot Crocodile stands up and he waves his finger and he says, "South Africa's never going to change, apartheid's here forever." And the rand, 80% of what I was selling was imported, the rand fell from 1 rand buying me $1 to having to spend $2.50 to buy a US dollar in 72 hours. And the prime borrowing rate went from 12%, and now I was borrowing like mad to fund all the stuff, the prime rate went to 27. Now, you might remember recently it went to 15. Let me tell you, at 27, you know, I know what the guys in the microlenders' hands feel like. You know, it's painful. I sold the second half of Boardman's to Pick n Pay for 1 rand because I got the timing wrong. And I ran out of cash, and I couldn't fund my share, and in terms of the agreement, I got totally diluted. And I had to start all over again.
You were persuaded by a Learjet.
Yeah, and be careful when it's all going well, because that's when you think you're smart. And actually, sometimes you were just lucky and not so smart.